Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, I'm Adina Salsabila from International Program for Islamic Economic and Finance, batch 2019. Today, I'd like to present my presentation about money and inflation. So, there are 5 topics that I'd like to discuss. First is about money. Second, the money supply and monetary policy. Third, inflation. Fourth, indicator of inflation. And the last is interest rate. Do you know what is money? Money is a liquid asset used in the settlement of transaction. Its function based on the general acceptance of its value within the governmental economy and internationally through foreign exchange. Actually, money is any items of variable records is generally accepted as payment for goods, service, and payment of debts, such as taxes in a particular country or socio-economic context. The main function of money are distinguished as medium of exchange, unit of account, a store of value, and sometimes a standard of deferred payment. Let's move on. The connection between money and prices. Inflation rate is equal to the percentage increase in the average level of prices. The second, price is equal to the amount of money required to buy a good. Because prices are defined in the terms of money, we need to consider the nature of money, the supply of money, and how it's controlled. The money supply and monetary policy definitions. Monetary policy is the control of the money supply. Monetary policy is implemented in line with the economic cycle, both the fast-growing economic cycle and the slowing economic cycle. Monetary policy is conducted by a country's central bank. The purpose of implementing monetary policy is aimed at increasing people's income through increased investment and production so that economic improvement can be realized. Monetary policy is important to implement because it relates to the proportion the money circulation has a close relationship with the goods and service sector, the real sector. And money demand is equal to the money supply. Although a country's central bank can control the money supply, ultimately the people must want to hold the money that the central bank wants them to hold. That is the desired money. Demand of the people must be equal to desired money supply of the central bank. So we need to discuss about money demand. There are 3 formula about the money demand. First is to recall that gross domestic product developer equal to money GDP divided into real GDP. Second, GDP deflator multiplied by real GDP is equal to the nominal GDP. The last is price multiplied by Y is equal to nominal GDP. In this part is the same like the previous part that I have spoken. And next, there are there are there are currency. There are many currency in the entire world. First, in the example that I show you, this is one from Korea. Second is US dollar from United States, euro, and then I'm sorry, and then ringgit from Malaysia, dollar Singapore, and also rupiah. Uh, Actually, do you know but the inflation? So what is inflation means? Okay, the definition about inflation. Inflation is the economic condition of a country where the increasing is in the price of goods and service is general for a long time or continuously due to imbalance of the flow of money and goods. In general, inflation occurs the money circulating in society is more than what is needed. What is causes of inflations? First is demand pull inflation. Inflation that occurs is due to an increase in demand certain types of goods and services. In this case, an increase in demand for these types for goods or services occurs in aggregate demand. This happen can be caused by several factors, including first, increase in government spending, second, increased demand for goods for export, and the last is increased demand for private goods. Move on. Second, cost pull inflations. Inflation that occurs is due to an increase in demand for certain types of goods and services. In this case, an increase in demand for jobs for goods and services occurs in aggregate demand. First is because increase in government spending, second, increased demand for goods for export, third, increased demand for private goods, fourth, food prices went up, and the last is labor wage to go. Uh, there are three factors about the inflation indicators that can be used to determine whether an economy is experiencing inflation or not. These indicators include first is Consumer Price Index or CPI. Is an index that calculates the average price change in a period of a collection of goods and services consumed by resident or household in a certain period of time. Change in the CPI from time to time indicate price move-ons of package of goods and services consumed by the public. These indicators is indicators that is often used to measure the inflation rate. Second is the wholesale price index or IHPB. In this case, is an indicator that describes the price movement of commodities that are traded at the producer level in an area in a certain period. If the CPI observed is the final goods consumed by the public, the observed of CPI is raw goods and semi-finished goods, which are inputs for producer. And the last is the gross domestic product or GDP. The GDP deflator is an indicator that describes the measurement of the level of prices for final goods and services produced in an economic country. The GDP deflator is generated by dividing GDP at nominal prices by GDP at constant price. Okay, let's move on. Inflation in the long run. Inflation in the long run rate is equal to rate at which money supply grows minus in the rate which real GDP grows. For example, if real GDP grows at the annual rate of 3.5%, and if the quantity of money grows at the annual rate for 4%, then the rate of inflation will be 0.5%. Okay, let's move on to the interest rate. Interest rate is the real interest rate is the fraction of a unit of the final good borrow that the borrower will have to pay the lender as interest, and the lending and borrowing take place in our economic but in commodities not cases. Okay. Uh, the real interest rate in this case of loans, the real interest rate is the inflation adjusted interest rate. To adjust the nominal interest rate of inflation, you simply subtract the inflation rate from the nominal interest rate. The problem is that when you are taking out a loan, you don't quite know what the inflation rate will be over the loan period. So academics distinguish between the ex post real interest rate and the ex and real interest rate, where P is the extent inflation is over the loan period. Okay, thank you so much, guys, for watching, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.